The vote. It's as American as apple pie. It's iconic.
Got the flag up?
Patriotic. The vote is as American as you. This November, step into the box and make it stick. Vote her up.
Download the MSNBC app now at msnbc.com/app.
What happened during January 6th and the fact that, you waited so long to take action while your supporters were attacking the Capitol. People so close to you and your administration no longer want to support you, so why would I want to support you? If you would answer these questions for me, I would really appreciate it and give you the opportunity. There's, your own vice president doesn't want to support you now.
I said peacefully and patriotically, nothing done wrong at all, nothing done wrong. And action was taken, strong action. Ashley Babbitt was killed. Nobody was killed. There were no guns down there. We didn't have guns. The others had guns.
Donald Trump's oh-so-telling answer at this week's UNIVISION town hall. The audience appeared to be as stunned as all of us watching at home, as the disgraced ex-president revealed that he viewed himself on the opposite side of Capitol Police officers during the January 6th insurrection. Trump's anti-democratic embrace of the violent mob who ended America's tradition of a peaceful transfer of power is the subject of a brand new ad from the Harris campaign aimed at undecided Latino voters, featuring Capitol Police officer Sergeant Aguilino Gonel, one of those Capitol Police officers Trump referenced as being on the opposing side. It is airing here first. Just watch.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear that I will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God.
I took an oath too when I joined the U.S. Army and when I became a Capitol Police officer. Guided by that, I served in combat in Iraq to protect our nation. Then again, on the steps of the Capitol, I defended our democracy. Donald Trump sent the attackers that day.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
An out-of-control president trying to steal an election, he lost by millions of votes. I fought and nearly died that day, supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States. And I would do it again, because that's the oath that I took. So help me God.
Again, we are waiting for Vice President Harris at a Union Hall in Lansing, Michigan. Joining our conversation, senior spokesperson for the Harris-Walz campaign, Kevin Munoz. Kevin, you will understand better than anyone if I have to dip out of our conversation to take your boss so that we can all listen to what she has to say. But I have to know what you thought, what went through your mind and the campaign's mind when the ex-president answered a question from a former Republican who was looking for a reason to come back to the party the way that Donald Trump did.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And look, you saw the faces in that crowd, but it's not just the faces. We heard from him in an interview after that town hall, and he said he's not going to vote for Donald Trump. And what we saw in our polling, what we continue to see every single day across so many voting blocks of these undecideds, is that January 6th, it's a bridge too far, and it's disqualifying. And when we talk more about this issue, and we also talk about another point that really brave former Republican voter talked about, the people that know Donald Trump best do not trust him. They are supporting the vice president, and they know that the commander-in-chief role is far too big for a man as unhinged and dangerous as Donald Trump.
So, Kevin, help me understand the strategy here, this ad specifically aimed at undecided Latino voters. What are you seeing in your polling and your focusing group that tells you that this is going to resonate?
Well, look, there's so much. First of all, Latinos are some of the most highest percentage of serving in our nation's armed services. And so duty to this country, protecting this country is such a priority. We are patriotic members of this country. And then you think about the fact that so many of our community have fled dictatorships, that know it's somebody that uses the power of the presidency against the will of the people is just something that goes too far. And we know that these Latino voters that haven't made a decision yet, they are so tired of the chaos. They are tired of somebody using the power of the presidency for their own political gain instead of doing the real things that we have a real opportunity on here to lower costs, to invest in our small businesses, to really do those common sense things a president should do.
Kevin, earlier this week, the campaign held a press conference with children who had been victims of Trump's family separation policy. Just want to play some of that for our viewers.
They told us that they were going to separate me and my mom, and that's when everything bad started to happen. I started crying. Me and Mama started crying because we thought we were never going to see each other again.
They just gave us only 10 for us to sleep like blankets. And then 6 more days later, they told us to take a shower and put on some uniforms, and then told us that we were going to be separated. And then we started to cry. We didn't really know what was happening, if we're going to see our mother again.
I don't want this to happen to other kids, and it's sad to see if it's going to happen again.
My heart breaks for these children. I think there's not a person with a heart who can watch that and not have their heart break for these children. As you know, there are voters who know that this happened, who have not made a decision yet to not vote for Donald Trump. How do you take what he has already done, what he did during his first administration, and connect it for voters to the promises he has made should he come to power again?
Well, you're absolutely right. Those stories are just heartbreaking. And I was there on the ground with those kids. I got the fortune to meet them, and I just can't imagine. These kids were 5, they were 6, they were 7 when they were ripped away from their mothers and their fathers just because Donald Trump said so. It did nothing to create safer communities, and it did nothing to protect our border. But these courageous stories help us make this as personal as possible for Latino voters that just know how disqualifying this is. We are a nation of immigrants, and part of the story that we have to tell, and we are doing on the ground every single day, Alicia, is making clear that while family separation was so anti-American, so horrifying, Donald Trump will go further. Think about what he's doing when he talks about mass deportations, militarizing our communities against legal immigrants in this country, and doing all of this while also going after the issues we care most deeply about. And so our job as a campaign has to connect his dangerous ideas to ruining your every single day lives, whether it's your health care, whether it's the stability of your communities where immigrants live, and doing all of that while cementing the fact that Kamala Harris, she is fighting for you.
Here's Jason Johnson and Juanita Tolliver is what stood out to me watching that ad and watching that sound from kids who've been victims of family separation, which is Latinos care about many things. Immigration is one of the issues we care about, but it's not the only issue we care about. Very interesting to see January 6th be put forward as an issue specifically to motivate those voters. Also, though, when I hear the kids talking, that was animating for Latinos, but it was also animating for white suburban moms. You know, like this is their messages targeted at audiences, but there's also cross-pollination that's happening throughout.
I've always felt that the border is sort of a quintessential example of cognitive dissonance in this country, because there are a lot of people who will see that video and say, oh my gosh, that's sad. And then they still have a problem with the policy, right? Because the policy has been wrong for a long time. Jeff Sessions and Stephen Miller specifically did this because they wanted to harm and attack people. What I find to be most compelling is this connection between I may have, and not every person, because we're talking about a whole part of the world, right? Like Mexico is not the same as Colombia, is not the same as Paraguay, is not the same as El Salvador. But this idea that, hey, my parents came here or my uncle brought us here to get away from the kind of nonsense that Donald Trump is going to do. I was moved by that. I have friends, I have family members who are refugees. I have students who fled countries that had that kind of violence. I thought that was an incredibly compelling message because it's one that anybody who has any semblance of an experience with third world leadership and dictatorships outside of this country, you may fear socialism. Okay, Harris isn't a socialist, but you know what a dictatorship looks like, and that's what Donald Trump represents.
To that point specifically, though, that's where I think Kevin's point about making it clear that what happened in Trump's first term is only going to be exponentially worse if he is elected again to the White House and in control in the Oval Office. And that connection to the human stories and the storytelling that is so very powerful and explicitly illustrative of that impact is important here. Because to Jason's point, people can look at that and say, I remember when that was happening in 2017, 2018. There was a limit in our polling and research at Center for American Progress where we saw that people would say, well, I blame the parents. I blame the parents for bringing the kids here. So to get over that hump, I think it needs to go back to the long-term implications of what Trump plans to do next, Project 2025, which has already laid out the intention.
Kevin Munoz, I am still reeling from, we have Vice President Harris. She's going to be taking the stage at a campaign event at a UAW Union Hall in Lansing, Michigan. Let's dip in and listen.